Valda's Spire of Secrets is one of the more contentful offerings in third-party books in the world of D&D, and while we don't have the whole thing on D&D Beyond, we do have the Gunslinger class now, released recently, and Valda's Spire of Secrets Player Pack, which came out a couple of months ago. Could be wrong in the timing of the last one, my memory is terrible, and I have ADHD. However, as I've started doing reviews recently, I thought it would be fun to check out and review and break down the subclasses in Valda Spire of Secrets, which means it's time, once again, to click on the thing and pretend it's a fancy transition. Boom. Valda Spire's Secrets Player Pack comes with some new spells as well, a lot of which are chronomancy based, which is a huge amount of fun, but we're going to be focusing today on the subclasses. There are 6 subclasses in this book, one for Barbarian, one for Fighter, one for Monk, one for Paladin, one for Rogue, and one for Warlock. Some of these are kind of memey and humory in terms of their general execution, but I think you can have a lot of fun with them anyway, as long as you don't mind reflavoring things, or if that's the kind of game you're playing. First up is the Path of the Muscle Wizard Barbarian. The first time I read this, I thought it was a wizard subclass that focused on strength. I obviously know what it is. So the flavour here and the lovely artwork, ideal. You basically get to play as Mashal from Magic and Muscles if you've watched that incredible anime or read the manga. If you haven't, you should. Very funny. At one point, he uses a consonant like a kickboard. The flavour here is you're a wizard. Perhaps you went to wizarding school on a football scholarship or just picked up a book at the gym and started reading. No matter how you got here, you're a wizard, and one that just coincidentally has massive rippling muscles. You have the big dumb hat and the book filled with gibberish and everything. Basically, you are a barbarian who pretends they're a wizard or thinks they're a wizard genuinely. It's entirely up to you as to how you execute that. So level 3, you get 2 features. The first is unarguable wizardry. Your unquestionable legitimacy and immense pectoral muscles give you advantage on intimidation checks made to convince others that you are, in fact, a wizard. Additionally, if someone questions your legitimate magical prowess, you can take a reaction to enter your rage until the end of the turn. This rage can't be expended and doesn't expend a use of your rage. This is a really funny thematic feature. Just straight away, you get to get angry, basically, if someone says you're not a wizard, and you've got a higher chance of succeeding on the intimidation check as well. You can also theoretically do this and then do the intimidation check, which would mean that you'd have better stats for it, because barbarians can use their strength on intimidation checks and they're in their rage. So you also get cantrips. You can call upon your magic to cast cantrips in combat. Once on each of your turns, when you hit with a strength-based attack, you can use one of the following cantrips of your choice. I'm not going to do the air quotes every time. Mage Hand. You can push the target up to 5 feet straight away from yourself if it is large or smaller. When your rage is active, you can push the target up to 10 feet instead. Basically gives you the push mastery to a degree, which is pretty solid. You're always, or nearly always, going to have your rage active, so Shocking Grasp. The force of your strike is quite shocking. The target can't make opportunity attacks until the end of the current turn. When your rage is active, it can't make opportunity attacks until the start of your next turn. So here we see again that kind of bonus to your rage, which is solid. And True Strike. You really truly strike, dealing an extra 1d6 damage to the target. The damage has the same type as the weapon or unarmed strike used for the attack, and while your rage is active, you add half your barbarian level rounded down to the extra damage. So all of these work on strength-based attacks, which means you don't have to do melee attacks. You can do weapon attacks if you want. I think this might be one of the classes that's better suited for unarmed brawling, though, which I think is cool in the barbarian. It's weird that we don't have a barbarian brawler, so this is kind of a fun way to do that. Level 6, you get spells. Your magic is powerful enough to cast every spell that exists, and no one can prove otherwise without broken ribs. However, you only prepared the following spells today. While your rage is active, you can use each of the following spells once. When you do so, you can't use that spell again until you finish a long rest, and spell slots are rough. Although if you can use each of these once, that means that technically you have the same number of spell slots as a higher level Warlock. Just something to think about. Burning Hands. Your backhand slap is legendary. As an action, you can make an unarmed strike against, unarmed strikes against a creature within your reach. On hit, this strike deals bludgeoning damage equal to 1d8 plus your strength modifier, and the target has disadvantage on the next attack it makes before the start of your next turn. Magic Missile. As an action, you can make 3 ranged attacks using darts, daggers, or other weapons with a thrown property that use strength for the attack and damage rolls. Because Magic Missile never misses, you have advantage on these attack rolls. Shield. When you're hit by an attack roll, you can take a reaction to quickly don a shield to defend yourself. You gain the shield's AC bonus against the triggering attack, potentially causing it to miss. If the attack hits, the damage dealt to you is reduced by an amount equal to your barbarian level. This is, I think you see this a lot in third-party barbarian classes, where you just get this wild amount of flexibility. And again, while I appreciate that this is kind of a joke class, it's also one that I really do think would be a lot of fun to play. Level 10, you get magic resistance. While your rage is active, you have advantage on saving throws against spells and other magical effects. It cannot be overstated how incredibly strong that is, especially if you've taken a few resilient or other things that would give you better saving throws in general. And then the capstone feat here is I cast Fist. You can crush enemies with your ultimate spell Fist. When you take the attack action while your rage is active, you can replace one of your attacks with a really hard punch. Make an unarmed strike with advantage. On a hit, the target takes bludgeoning damage equal to 66 plus your strength modifier and has the prone condition if it's huge or smaller. You can use this feature once per active rage. Once per active rage is really interesting phrasing there, because it means that you can drop your rage on purpose and then reactivate it to do it again in the same fight if you wanted to do so. So the Muscle Wizard is this, it's sort of unarmed based, but it's also got these weird other weapon things like darts, daggers, and shields. I think it's a huge amount of fun, undoubtedly. I think there are campaigns where this would work as is without it being a joke. I also think this could work for a character that maybe used to be a wizard but was cursed and now they have become a barbarian, or like there are so many ways of making something silly like this actually quite thematic and like touching, if that's what you're after in your roleplay. I like it. The fighter class is somehow the most niche of the bunch here, I think. But you do get to be a fighter, which in 2024 rules is pretty darn strong. So the fighter Dungeoneer, only fools would dive headfirst into an abandoned crypt filled with monsters and death traps. But it seems only fools emerge from such crypts laden with as much loot as they can carry. The archetypal Dungeon Delver is a veteran of such suicidal dungeon delves and has become intimately familiar with the hazards therein. In the course of their adventures, such a Dungeoneer will have adopted countless best practices along with a litany of unproven superstitions which they believe will keep them alive. Principles from always be the first one to hit a monster to never be the first one to touch a treasure chest live in a Dungeoneer's journal. However, it's probably better to be paranoid and superstitious than lying at the bottom of a pit trap, incinerated by a fireball, or digested by a mimic. Very true. You get so much flavor with that as your concept, that you come from like a long line of Dungeoneers who all want to, ensure that the line keeps on going forever. They've made a name for themselves as a legacy family. Is just mwah. At level 3, you get advantage on attack rolls you make during the first round of combat. That's incredibly solid. It definitely pairs well as multi-classes if that's something you're looking to do. You also get heroic superstition. You gain heroic inspiration when you do any of the following: deal a damage type to which the creature has a vulnerability, trigger a creature-specific weakness, such as a Shadow Sunlight weakness or dealing damage that prevents a creature's regeneration. Guess a creature-specific kind of monster, such as Mimic or Lich, before seeing it. The GM confirms if you are correct when the creature is revealed. You can't guess the identity of humanoids. Discover a secret door, detect or disarm a track, find an uncommon, rare, very rare, or legendary magic item worth 100 gold plus. Most magic items in those categories are going to be 100 gold plus, so that's really just anything that you're finding of those kinds. But that's a cool suite of abilities, and again, it's almost designed to let you play with your meta knowledge of the game and your knowledge as a player. Level 7, you can cast any of the following spells with that spell slot: Alarm, Comprehend Languages, Detect Magic, Detect Poison and Disease, Find Traps, Identify, Purify Food and Drink. You can use Int, Wiz, or Charisma as your spell casting. You choose the ability when you cast the spell, and you can use the feature 5 times and regain all uses when you finish a long rest. These are niche spells, apart from Identify and Detect Magic, which I would argue are actually nearly always useful, but it's fun and it's fitting, right? Level 10, you get Monster Kill. Once per turn when you hit an Aberration, Dragon, Fae, Fiend, Monstrosity, Ooze, or Undead with an attack from a weapon, you can deal an extra 1d10 damage to the target. Extra damage is good, as it turns out. Level 15 is Avoidance. When you're subjected to an effect that allows you to make a Strength, Dexterity, or Constitution saving throw, take only half damage. You instead take no damage if you succeed on the throw and half if you fail. Can't use this feature if you have the incapacitated condition. This is fairly standard as a feature, but it's normally just for dexterity. The fact that this works for all of your physical saves is really, really good. And then on level 18, Veteran Hero. Once per turn when you make a d20 test, you can expend a Heroic Inspiration to turn the roll into a 20 instead of re-rolling it, and you can have 2 instances of Heroic Inspiration at one time. So this gives you auto crits, which is eminently easy to abuse. You pick up a Fire Tongue or something, although obviously at level 18 you would hope that you've got better loot than that, but something akin to that where you've got extra damage rolls for your attacks, and you're laughing if you can crit on purpose, especially if you take things where Great Weapon Master, so when you crit you definitely get your bonus action, things like that. It's a fun suite of abilities. I do think it's more niche than some of the other ones, but if you know you're playing in a dungeon heavy campaign or like a treasure hunting campaign, then this subclass is going to be fantastic. And again, on top of all of that, you are a fighter, and I cannot stress enough how good fighters are in 2024. We are now onto the monk subclass, which is the warrior of the street, which starts with street fighting is an urban discipline founded on necessity, whose blindingly fast, unique brand of martial arts has been honed and perfected in back alley brawls and tournaments alike. Monks who adopt this relatively new technique place comparatively little value on spiritual alignment and inner focus. The thrill of split-second timing, rapid combos, and decisive knockouts drive them to become the best combatants in the world. I wonder what game series this is inspired by. Oh look, this person's doing a jumping uppercut against a dragonborn. Monk is one of my favourite classes alongside bards and at the moment druids, but I think that's just because I'm playing a moon druid. More subclass options are always good for any class. I'm a huge favourite of them as both a DM and as a player. And I love the ones for the monk that kind of do take away that spiritual focus a lot. I said it in the Crooked Moon, I stand by it here. This is a monk driven to perfect the physical side of things. The enlightenment is irrelevant. Level 3, you get combo. When you hit a creature with an unarmed strike and deal damage, you can spend 1 focus point to begin a combo. Until the end of the current turn, you gain a +2 bonus to attack rolls of your unarmed strikes. This bonus increases by 2, up to a maximum of 6 for each successive hit on the current turn. The bonus resets to 2 if you take damage or miss with an attack roll. Now, it's only until the end of the turn, so if you're going to take damage, it would have to be from a reaction of some kind, but this basically makes it easier and easier for you to hit all of your attacks as long as you hit with one of them. So if you can have a consistent way to give yourself advantage on that first strike, this becomes pretty trivial. I will say that Grappler is undoubtedly one of the best feats for unarmed monks, and when you're grappling a creature you have advantage on them, so unless your luck is really, really bad like mine, the Grappler feat is usually going to be enough. However, being able to not only roll with advantage, but potentially roll with a +6 modifier on top of your normal to hit modifier is one heck of a way to guarantee you're beating down things. You also get Iron Fist, which is more for flavour than anything else. When you hit an object with an unarmed strike, the hit is a critical hit. It could not list that only works on cars. At level 6, you get special moves. You get 3 of these, basically. Energy Blast. When you take the attack action on your turn, you can spend a focus point to replace one of your attacks with a blast of energy. One creature of your choice that can see you within 60 feet makes a dexterity saving throw, taking force damage equal to 2 rolls of your martial arts die or half as much on a successful save. I don't love that that's not just an attack, but that's just me. I think it'd be different if it was an AoE, but it's not, right? So to me that should be an attack roll. Guard Breaker. If you make an attack roll with your unarmed strike and miss the target, you can expend 1 focus point to perform a Guard Breaker. The unarmed strike deals damage equal to your dexterity modifier to the target. The miss doesn't reset your combo bonus to attack rolls. It's cleave, but for monks. Not cleave, graze, but for monks. And interacting with the combo thing from earlier is obviously really solid. And then uppercuts. When you hit a creature with an unarmed strike and deal damage, you can spend 1 focus point to make an uppercut. You can push the target up to 5 feet away from you and give the target the prone condition if it is large or smaller. I would say there's definitely a universe in which the DM allows you to kind of do each of your attacks as you're jumping up. In which case you could potentially knock a creature really, really high if you hit with, all 5 of your attacks when you're at a higher level. Potentially knock them 25 feet away from you or further if you've gained something else. Magic items, other feats, things like that. It's cool. I think it's a shame it's not 10 feet and it's not just up in the air, but I get it. Prone is more is more advantage. Air dash at level 11. On your turn, you can spend 1 focus point to gain a fly speed equal to your speed until the end of your next turn. No action required. You have advantage on the next melee attack you make before the end of the current turn. More advantage and also a fly speed is really solid. This class is an absolute beast of hitting people, just actually hitting people between the combo, the guard breaker and air dash as well, giving advantage. Also the uppercut knocks them prone, which you'll have advantage on too. So this is the subclass to take with the monk if you don't like missing, basically. Finally, at level 17, you get KO. Once per turn, when you hit a creature with an unarmed strike, you attempt to knock the target out. The target takes extra force damage equal to 3 rolls of your martial arts die. If the target has 100 hit points or fewer after you deal damage with the unarmed strike, it has the unconscious condition for 10 minutes. You can't use this against your short long rest unless you spend 5 focus points. Super fun, super flavorful, potentially really, really powerful if you know that you want to leave a specific enemy standing so you can have a polite conversation with them afterwards, then this might be one of the strongest ways to do that. Certainly for a monk. All in all, I like the subclass. It's designed to actually hit things. I do think some of the abilities could be slightly stronger, but that's easy enough to fix as the DM, although I guess I shouldn't be considering that. The KO ability is incredibly cool. It doesn't note size or anything with that, so you can knock out a dragon. The Paladin subclass is the Oath of Revelry, which is basically the Oath of the bro. I'm not joking. Also, it references it in a second. Paladins who swear the oath of revelry make a solemn vow to party day and night until their hearts give out. The antithesis of stuffy lawful crusaders, these emissaries of carousal travel the land, crashing parties and raising hell wherever they raise a glass. Authorities bristle at their arrival, but the youth cheer, for a party paladin is always accompanied by a good time. These paladins share the following tenets: abide with the doctrine of the Codicus Brodicus, celebrate every occasion, inviting friend and foe alike, and when necessary, fight for your right to party. I mean, this is a deeply silly subclass, but in much the same way that I like when monks get classes that aren't all about spiritual enlightenment, I also get when paladins get subclasses that aren't all about, being a do-gooder. So, level 3, you get your Oath of Revelry spells. These are pretty solid for the most part. Charm Purse and Hideous Laughter are both really good. Enhance ability is a bit naff. Hangover is one of the new spells. You emit a drunken aura that washes away, leaving an intense hangover. A creature you choose within the range makes a Constitution saving throw. On a failed throw, the creature takes psychic damage and has the poison condition until the end of your next turn. The target has disadvantage on Constitution saving throws it has to maintain concentration as a result of this damage. So this is a great one for getting rid of spells. You've then got Create Food and Water, Hypnotic Pattern, which is good. Charm Monster, which is solid. Freedom of movement, which is alright. Yes, which is odd. Yes is a strange spell, but not a bad spell. And then Telepathic Bind, which lets you psychically link to a bunch of creatures and you can all talk. You also get Conjured Drink. You can use your Channel Divinity to conjure a number of mugs filled with frothy ale up to your charisma modifier, which appear within 30 feet of you. Creature that drinks the ale as a bonus action gains temp health equal to charisma modifier and has advantage on saving throws for a minute. Advantage on all saving throws for a minute is borderline broken, especially at level 3. That's probably the strongest feature we've seen in any of the subclasses so far, and it just being at level 3 and pretty comfortably, clearing the party is real strong. Your aura, you and your allies deal an extra 1d4 damage using melee weapons or unarmed strikes while in your aura of protection. Damage is the same type dealt by the weapon or unarmed strike. 1d4 isn't a huge amount, but if you're in a party that's making a lot of attacks, then that could be actually quite a sizable increase. It's only, 2 damage on average, but still. Level 15 is Merrymaker. When you're an ally within 30 feet of yourself, you can see or hear makes a d20 test. You can take a reaction to give that creature advantage. You can use this a number of times equal to charisma modifier and regain all uses on a long rest. If the creature does still fail, you don't expend the Merrymaker. So this just, again, really helps you with saving throws, basically. It's actually not just saving throws, is it? D20 tests as attacks and a bunch of other stuff, so that's really strong. Also, this artwork is fantastic. Look at this absolute boss of a dude. At level 20, you get Party Animal. As a bonus action, you can imbue your aura of protection with many-hued Magic of Revelry, granting the benefits below for 10 minutes or until you end them. Once you use this feature, you can't do it again until you long rest, or you expend a level 5 spell slot. So you get all 3 of these benefits. You don't have to choose. The extra damage from your aura increases to 1d8, which is solid. At the end of each of your turns, you can give heroic inspiration to one ally within the aura, and you and your allies have immunity to blinded, deafened, exhaustion, and poison conditions while in the aura. Theoretically, this means that this would clear them as well if they were under these effects, which means that this can actually be like a wide-range heal, which is solid. I think this might be one of the strongest subclasses in this book, and one of the stronger paladin subclasses in general. I know the Oath of the Ancients is really solid, but having advantage on all saving throws is preposterous and a great way to start any fight. So the Arachnoid Stalker is very subtly influenced by a superhero who may or may not be based on spiders. The Arachnoid Stalker is a rogue. A life-changing event such as being cursed by a Dryad or being bitten by a dangerously transmuted arachnid has imbued you with the abilities of a spider. This transformation might have left you physically unchanged, or you may have developed half a dozen eyes, lanky and hairy limbs, or a set of inhuman mandibles. Whatever the side effects, you can now produce deadly poison and ropes of silken webs from your palms and even scale walls with your fingertips. Who doesn't want to be Spider-Man in D&D? Like, that's gotta be a fairly common one, right? Gotta be. Level 3, you get webbing. You can magically produce sticky silken webs from your hands as a bonus action. The web dissolves after a minute. When you create the webs, you can use them to do one of the following. You project a line of web at one point you can see within 30 feet, pulling yourself to that point in a straight line without provoking opportunity attacks. You can use this benefit as a reaction when you fall to pull yourself up to 10 feet in any direction. You could potentially get back to the wall if you get knocked off or thrown off or something. Manipulate objects. You can use a line of web to manipulate an object that isn't being worn or carried within 30 feet. For example, you can pull an object to your hand, close a door, or snatch a small or smaller is a weird phrase. Snatch a small or smaller object weighing less than 10 pounds. You create a 60-foot long rope of web and anchor it to a point you choose, so good for climbing, and you can cast web without using a spell slot as part of the bonus action used for this feature. When you cast it using the feature, the web fills a 5-foot cube and the spell's duration becomes a minute. You can use this feature twice. You can gain an expended use on short rests and all on a long rest. You also get Venomous Strike. When you deal sneak attack damage to a creature, you can choose for the sneak attack to deal d8 of poison damage instead of d6 of the same type of weapon damage. Now, this is just a straight up buff to sneak attack, but with the small print being that there are lots of creatures who are immune to poison. It's good, but it's not universally great. Level 9, you get wall crawling. You become accustomed to moving like a spider, granting you the following benefits. Climber, you gain a climb speed equal to your speed. Hiding on ceilings. If you are on a ceiling and lightly obscured, you can take the hide action as long as the enemy that could see you is below you. And spider climb, you can move up, down, and across vertical surfaces and along ceilings while leaving your hands free. So you can be on the ceiling, throwing daggers at stuff. No issues. Level 13 is Spider Sense. When you make a saving throw and take damage, you can take a reaction to use your Uncanny Dodge, halving the damage you take. It's just a straight upgrade to Uncanny Dodge. Uncanny Dodge is good. There's no limit to how many times you can do that either, so that's pretty good. And then the final ability is Paralytic Venom. You gain the following Cunning Strike option. It costs 4d6, but when you poison the enemy with your Venomous Strike, the target must succeed on a Constitution save or have the Paralyzed condition until the end of your next turn. That's pretty solid. The Constitution saving throw, does it say what the saving throw is? I assume it would be the same one as here, so 8 plus your dex plus your prof, which is 17, is going to be likely 18, right? So I would assume it's that. It doesn't actually say. It might say in the Cunning Strikes in general. I haven't played a rogue recently, so I mean the subclass is very obvious in what it's trying to do. I think it does it well. I think there's some fun stuff in there, but you need to know that the DM is going to be giving you lots of walls and ceilings to cling to really get the most out of this. We have saved the most interesting one for last in the Warlock Future You Patron. Your patron is you in a decade's distant future. Perhaps your future self found an artifact of great power connecting them to the past, which they must now lead you to discover. Or perhaps they were taught the mystic arts by their future self long ago, a cycle you will have to continue someday. Your future self has forgotten the fine details of some things and outright refuses you to tell you about things you can't know yet, but nevertheless offers compelling insight and guidance. You're not quite sure what your future self is planning for your future and for their past, but one thing is certain, they do need you alive. This is the Chronomancy Warlock. We'll go over the feature in a sec. I just want to quickly highlight the RP stuff that they suggest here. So you often speak in the wrong tense or refer to yourself in a plural. Sometimes you refer to a person by their name before they've introduced themselves. That's really fun. You're unreasonably calm in dire situations. That's just neurourgency. In certain lighting, you look much older than you are. That's great. Seeing some people alive instantly reduces you to tears. Classic. And your future fashion sense clashes completely with that of today. Some of those are heartbreaking and incredibly moving, and then some of those are obviously very silly, but that's the vibe here. More importantly, though, are all of the future use spells. A lot of these are new. A lot of these are fine. Protection from energy is fine. Slow is obviously good. Death Ward is good. Dire Warning is new. Legend Lore and Telepathic Bond are both... Legend Lore is great. Accelerate and Decelerate is a reaction spell. You can make the damage more or less by using your reaction, basically, which is really, really cool. Delay lets you move creatures in initiative order. I had a talk with this with the other DMs in my little group, because I'm very lucky, and 4 out of the 5 of us in my main D&D group DM, which means we have an overabundance of campaigns we want to play, but it's a very first world D&D problem. This is a tricky one to put a value on, because theoretically it could be really, really good. You could take the fastest creature and put it last, which theoretically would mean that it would not get its turn again until the end of the next initiative roll. Yeah, start of the next round onwards. But it's tough to evaluate because they might not have been there anyway, given how quick some combats can be in D&D. Moment to Think is a cantrip. When you cast this spell, it's a bonus action. When you cast this spell, you briefly stop time for everyone but yourself. You can take one additional action and move around in your space while no time passes for others. That sounds broken, but there's terms and conditions. The action can only be used for the search, study, or utilize action. Furthermore, you can't affect or damage any creature or object other than objects you are wearing or carrying. If an object leaves your hand, it also becomes frozen in time. There's definitely really fun ways to use this. You can only move around in your space, so you can't run over to an enemy, unpin a hand grenade, let go of it so the time's frozen for it, and then go away. But you could theoretically throw something. Okay, I just want to read the actions, right? So search is all of your checks, study is some more checks. So it's the utilize one, I think. You normally interact with an object while doing something else, such as when you draw a sword. When an object requires an action for its use, you take the utilize action. So it could be a lever, it could be a trap button, it could be a crossbow trigger, it could be a bunch of other stuff. So there are ways in which that's really strong, but it does require you to really think about it. The other new spell is Dire Warning. You receive a message of up to 6 words from yourself in the future, warning of your critical threat pointing you towards a fruitful avenue. The GM determines this message, and at some point in the future, once you have learned why you send the message, you must perform the ritual over the course of 10 minutes to send it back to your past self. Cast this spell and receive no message. It indicates you will never complete the ritual in the future, possibly owing to your death or another hindrance. Once you cast this spell, you can't cast it again for 7 days or until you perform the ritual to send it back. Man, the RP value of this and the fun for the DM running a game for a player using this is just off the charts. It really is. The other level 3 is It Happened Like This. Your discussions of the future with yourself have given you peripheral knowledge about how events will play out. When you finish a short or long rest, the GM rolls a d20 and a d4 in secret and records the numbers rolled on the d20. The GM tells you the recorded d20 roll unless they roll a 4 on the d4, in which case they can lie about the recorded d20. You can replace any d20 test you made by you or a creature you can see with the d20 roll, no action required. You must choose to do so before the roll. If the GM lied about the roll, they inform you of the actual recording d20 roll only after you replace the test with it. There's the bluffing mechanic in one of the gunslinger classes, subclasses, that kind of interacts with the DM as well. I really like features like this. I saw some complaints about this stuff on Reddit, but that's Reddit, what it's for, and that's fine. People should be allowed to complain. I think it's fun. Level 6, I could do with fewer scars. Your future self warned you of particular attacks to watch out for. When a creature you can see hits you with an attack roll, you can take a reaction to gain a +10 bonus to your AC, potentially causing miss. You can use this feature twice. You regain 1 expended use when you finish a short rest, and all of them went on a long rest. So this is like double shield, but only against 1 attack, not against lots of things, but that could be the difference between taking damage or not, right? Which is huge, and 10 AC is a lot. So that can potentially knock out some really powerful attacks, which is good. 10, you have advantage on initiative rolls and resistance to all damage on the first round of combat. Very fitting and thematic. The resistance is fun, especially if you're playing like a melee version of this. This and the Pact of the Blade are going to be great together. Finally, we have level 14, the Grandfather Paradox. As a magic action, you can goad a creature within 60 feet of you can see or hear, causing a paradox. The creature must make an intelligence saving throw against your spell save DC. On a failed save, the creature takes 10d6 psychic damage and has a stun condition for a minute as it's locked in between opposing timelines. On a successful save, it takes half as much damage. Stun creature repeats the save at the end of each of its turns. This is a really cool way to lock a creature out of combat potentially, and 10d6 is an average of 35 damage, which isn't bad at all. On top of all of that, you still got all of the good Warlock stuff that you would normally get. It's a really cool subclass. I think the features are very well thought out and designed and fit the ideas really, really well. I think it's relatively strong. I find Warlocks hard to evaluate because so much of the power of the class is tied up in the invocations rather than the subclass. I think it's decent. I don't think it's broken, and that's good. That's kind of the play space we should be aiming for. So I'm not going to go through all the spells. Like, I'm done with the subclass thing. I just want to highlight Clue as a spell because I think it's fantastic. The level 1 divination action or ritual. When you cast a spell, all footprints and fingerprints within the 30-foot emanation originating from you become highlighted and glow faintly for the duration. When you cast the spell, you can choose a point of time up to 10 days ago. Only footprints and fingerprints left between them and the present time will be highlighted. Each creature that leaves footprints and fingerprints is assigned a unique colour, but otherwise not identified. Any creature that moves or touches objects within the emanation will also leave colourful footprints and fingerprints, which might reveal invisible creatures in the area. I just think that's such a cool spell, and I love it. Yeah, that is the end of the review of the deep dive and the full review of the Valda's Spire of Secrets player pack subclasses. I overall think they're really, really solid. I do think they're a bit memey, and I think that's gonna irk some DMs. I think it's fine. I think you can make serious anything that is silly, and I think you can make anything silly that is serious in D&D. That's the power you have as players and as the DM as well. I still think it's funny that the Paladin might be the strongest of the bunch, but let me know if you disagree, and I will be working my way through a few of the other D&D Beyond books I have, because that's primarily how I play, because I play online with a group that includes people in China and Denmark and also the UK. So until next time, have a wonderful, wonderful day, and take care. Like and subscribe, and yeah, goodbye.